Hotep, and welcome to Matters of Diversity with Dr. B. And today we're going to be hanging out with some proud parents, parents who are going to come and talk to us a little bit about what it is to raise children in this time and this day and this age, especially when it comes to how America and the people in the United States, per se, are handling and dealing with LGBTQ issues. And so I have the pleasure, the distinct pleasure of bringing in as guest today Melissa Gillis, she, her, is the administrative coordinator to working in the Office of Undergraduate Research. She is an alumni here from UCF and with a bachelor's in social sciences in 2018, and will be starting her MSM in human resources at the College of Business in UCF this fall. Melissa has served on the Pride Faculty Staff Association as their social media and communications chair for 2 years and will continue to this upcoming year. Her passions include her family and pets, gardening, the beach, and being an advocate. And next we have Dr. Elizabeth Smock, who is a lifelong educator, currently serving as a program coordinator for the UCF's Graduate Interdisciplinary Studies program. She has been at UCF a total of 7.5 years, 5 in her current position. Elizabeth is the proud mother of Stuart, who is 17, and Green, who's 12, and thrilled adoptive mom to Callie. And Callie is a Whippet mix. I think about 6 years old, right? She's a she. She's about 6 years old. So, welcome. Thank you all for being a part of today's conversation. How y'all doing?
Pretty well.
Doing good.
Doing good. So, I'm quite sure you have the opportunity to talk pretty often about what's happening in your life experiences when it comes to being parents of children who are part of the LGBTQ community. So, with that being said, can you kind of talk about what some of that experience has been and how has that maybe enlightened you, made you who you are, and in terms of your advocacy for your children and just maybe all children in the world?
Want to go first?
Sure, why not? Well, I have 3 children, and 2 of my children identify in the community. One of them identifies as non-binary and is a lesbian, and that's one of my twins, Alicia. And then my oldest child, Cassidy, identifies as pansexual. I kind of always knew Alicia was in the community ever since they were young. I'm getting used to that. Definitely.
So let me stop you there. And when you're talking about that they word, you're talking about pronouns.
Correct. Yes. My child is a singular they pronoun is their usage. And it's for 16 years, I was very used to she, her, hers for that one. And now it's they, them, theirs.
Can I ask you when that transition happened for you?
About 6 months ago, shortly after the new year started.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cut you off. So go ahead, finish your story.
Oh, no, you're fine. So we always knew that Alicia was in the community. We were just patiently waiting for them to figure it out. And when they did, we were, of course, very happy that they came to us and felt that we could support them, and that they felt safe with us. And then just, it's done from there. My husband and I have always just felt that until Alicia was old enough to, advocate for themselves, it was our job as their parents to do that for them.
So, I'm listening to you very intently use the words that you're using, and they've become almost like a matter of fact for you at this point. Tell me about that learning curve.
Well, working in social justice and advocacy for many years helped me very much learn a lot of the lingo and understand a lot of the community. So meeting people that were in the middle of transitioning or just coming to their own identity helped a lot for me to just actually be able to accept and transition for Alicia in an easier way.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Dr. Smock?
Well, mine is probably at least as new as Melissa's history with this. My youngest came out as trans. I want to say maybe late January. So again, pretty close to that same time. I really had no idea, but this is Green, my youngest, and um, he actually kind of said something the other day that made a lot of sense to me because up until just a little bit before this coming out, he was always like he wanted his aunt to help him learn how to shave his legs, and it was just kind of almost like a hyper um, femininity. And he told me just maybe a week or two ago that he's really kind of figured out that he knew he wasn't comfortable in his body, but he thought that was where it was. Kids used to tease him about, having hairy arms or hairy legs, just, not being feminine enough. And so I think that was, it just took a lot of time for him to realize. Now, of course, he just turned 12. So everything's so up in the air at that age anyway. So,
So help me understand. So you said that they were teasing because of hairy arms and hairy legs,
Mhm.
and wanted to learn how to shave so that wasn't an issue. What was it about the hairy arms and hairy legs that was such a problem with what why was he being teased at that point in time, you know?
well, we have this stupid image, especially in the US, but in other places as well, that women are not supposed to be hairy. We're supposed to shave. We're supposed to, just be clean from the eyebrows all the way down. Heaven forbid if you have hairy toes like a hobbit. That's gross to so many people. And I mean, I actually stopped shaving for a while so I could show him that yes, kids are going to tease, and that sucks. And I'm sorry, but you have to get to a point where it doesn't matter anymore. And I have to admit, being at the university, I feel a lot freer to kind of go against some of those societal norms because most people in the university just don't care. If you're doing your job well, as long as you're not, coming to work in a bikini or something, most people simply do not care, which is great. That's not how it works in so many places. So
Right.
that was a
And kids can be brutal.
oh,
Oh
especially at
yeah.
that fourth, fifth, sixth grade level. I mean, it's just yeah, it's been really, really bad. So,
So how did you as a mom handle that?
well, as far as the teasing goes, like I said, I just tried to kind of model that. Yes, sometimes it hurts when people are, um, they're judging you on something that's not something you can change easily. But I just tried to support him when he wanted to have his aunt help him learn how to shave his legs instead of me. I'm like, that's cool. She's his favorite aunt. I mean, the aunt came to me and said, "Are we sure about this? Because this kid's only 11." I'm like, "Whatever. If this is going to make you more comfortable, if he decides it later, it doesn't matter. Then it's certainly not not irreversible. It's an easy thing to do and an easy thing to change if he wanted to." So,
Mm,
um, so yeah, and I'm kind of trying to do the same thing still now with
mm.
him wanting puberty blockers, for example. Um, a lot of the doctors in town won't do that for the younger ones, and I'm thinking, why? If you want to stop puberty as early as possible,
Hmm.
I mean that is reversible, right? So if anything would happen where he'd come and say, it's just all my friends were this way and celebrities are more open, so I just thought that was the way it was supposed to be. Okay, so he's a little slow with some of the changes in puberty if he decides to be female after all. It's not that big a deal. So it's been a real struggle to find treatment for a kid this age. Even the Zebra Coalition will only do 16 and
Because
up.
there's a mental health aspect to it as well, right?
Oh, that's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
We had a suicide attempt on March 1st, and Green has been
Mm.
out of behavioral hospitals and residential facilities almost since then.
Yeah.
So it's been my worst spring ever so far.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm sorry
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
going through that. But I also think that in the transitioning process, that there is also a component, or at least that's what I've been told anyway, that there's a component of that where they want to make sure that the decision is uncoerced and the person is ready to make this move before they even put them on any type of medication to transition. Is that something that's been in your pathway, or is that something that you all been talking about?
It's definitely. I mean, like I said, I emailed and called so many different endocrinologists who work with kids, but they don't work with that sort of hormone therapy. They work with kids who have diabetes. They have, kids who have growth issues, whatever. They don't do this one. And when you have a kid who has very, very acute body and gender dysphoria, and he has already hit puberty, so it's, he's seeing these changes, and it's a nightmare. There have been times where he doesn't want to shower because he doesn't want to see or touch himself to clean up. And that's, I mean, I get it, but I also don't want a filthy kid running around my house.
Well, at least, in some regards, I think at least you can laugh at it, right? You can kind of, well, not laugh at it, but laugh to keep yourself from crying, perhaps, and
Right.
move forward with that.
And actually, soon after that, my eldest Stuart came to me and said, "Well, I guess I should tell you I'm bi." And for me, that was like, okay, you're bi and you have brown hair. Whereas Green's trans, that was a lot different.
Yeah.
It's
So how are you handling that? How are you personally being able to handle what's happening in your family?
I have a great therapist. That's one thing. I tend to be very reflective anyway. I've been told by multiple people that I'm very self-aware. And so one of the things that kind of hit me is one of the reasons that's more difficult for me is that I've lost my little girl. And so there's a mourning process. And so my therapist and also a couple of friends who are in the community were like, that's really brave of you to admit that, to understand that. And it just makes it a completely different level, I guess, of trying to support your kids.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Melissa, how about you? What has been your journey in terms of that? You've been doing this work for so long, and now you are experiencing it within your own household. Is the journey that you are on one that helps you kind of navigate it differently or better, or I don't know if it's a better or worse type of situation, but what actually comes up for you when you are dealing with your child or the situation?
I think that actually everything that I've learned through diversity training, especially at UCF, has really been that's what really has been what's helped me kind of been there for them. It's given me the ability to say, okay, that they are going through these things. And I've been able to have conversations with them of, okay, well, do you think now that, are you thinking that you might be trans? And the conversation leads to, well, no, not really, but I have thought about maybe changing my name, but I'm not sure about that. So I think that what I've learned the most out of all of this is to just realize that that's still my kid. And Elizabeth, I hear you, right? And that's my biggest thing is like, yes, I still have 2 other daughters, but I had 3. And now I have 3 children. And that's what I have to get used to continuously saying is that for me, I have 3 children because I have to take the binary part out of it. So it is in a sense kind of a loss, but I still remember that that's still my same kid, right? That's still the same kid who their whole life didn't like this one thing or their whole life, this ticked them off. And that stuff hasn't changed.
Yeah.
All that's changed is really their pronouns and maybe how they might dress.
So are they influencing one another, Melissa, or is there a way to engage whether this is my mindset, this is really who I see myself to be, or are they influenced by their siblings?
So they're a twin, and so their twin identifies as straight and as a female, and then their older sister is pansexual but identifies as female. And so no, I don't think so. Alicia has always, like I said, we've known since Alicia was young that they were in the community. I just knew. I had gay friends that knew. They told me, they're like, that Alicia.
How does one know?
I don't know. I mean, there's the joke in the community that's like it's gaydar, right? And I don't want to say that like in a disrespectful way at all, but I don't know. There was just something inside of me that I knew. It was just something that always said inside of me that one's going to come to you and they're going to tell you that they're gay. And I don't know why, but it's just something that I always knew. And so when Alicia did tell me, I was like, well, I'm glad you realized it because I've always known. And they were like, oh, okay. They did when they got to high school, it did get a little difficult for them because we lived in DC when they first came out. And in DC, it's extremely open, even to come out at 10. Their friends who they had known their entire life were like, okay, whatever, we don't care. You like girls, we don't care. Moving to Florida was a huge culture shock for Alicia, and that we dealt with a lot of bullying down here. A lot of we also, Elizabeth, I feel you. Alicia's had suicide attempts also. It's very traumatic. It's extremely heart-wrenching because like there's that mama bear that just wants to go and find that parent of that other child and go, what is wrong with you? How could you raise your children to have so much hate in their heart? But then you realize that you can't do that, right? So you have to just realize you have to just focus all of your strength and turn it into love for your child. And so the journey's been hard, because then Alicia decided that I'm not gay, I'm straight and I like boys. And I said, okay, whatever. And so for all of their freshman year of high school, they completely changed how they looked and started dating boys, but you could just see how unhappy they were. And we moved and they started a new school sophomore year. And all of a sudden, like right around quarantine, it clicked. You know what? I was wrong. That's not who I was. I allowed outside influences to pressure me to being what society wants me to be. They went to, at the time, they were at a school that was pretty conservative and for the town that we lived in at the time. And, they weren't very open to a lot of things. So Alicia felt that they had to, recloset themselves to get by. And that was really hard to watch them do that, knowing in my heart that the pain that they were actually putting themselves through. So I'm glad now, though, that they were at a point where in the past year, they've really come into their own. And I can see just a completely different child from how they used to be to how they are now. The confidence, the self-worth that they see in themselves. So I'm just so grateful that they've made that journey.
Thank you for that. And that's really really interesting. So you said something that made me wonder. You said they were looking at changing their name.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that for you.
Well, when Alicia first came to me about being non-binary, I said, okay, that's great. So we're looking at they, them, and they said yes. And well, first they said they, she, and I questioned. I said, are you doing they, she because that's how you feel, or are you doing they, she to make it easier for everyone else? And it was for making it easier for everyone else. And I encouraged them to not do that. I said, because in my experience, people won't change unless you're going to force them to change. And if you let them continually call you she, and that doesn't make you feel comfortable, then they're not going to make that change.
Right.
So then I asked them, well, so you're non-binary though, do you think you're trans? Do you want to change your name? And they said, well, I've thought about it, but I don't think so, because the one name that they did like is not a good name for another member of our family. It's a triggering moment when for that name. So and so they just decided, no, I think I like Alicia. I'm going to keep Alicia for now.
So that's my question though. When you gave birth, you deliberately named your child. So this is not society naming the child. This is you and your husband naming your child. And then your child says, I don't like that name. It doesn't fit me. That's what I'm asking you in terms of that type of a question. Have you thought about that? Has that been a process for you to kind of mourn the loss of, or think about, or whatever have you? Because you're like, I understand I want my child to do and be who they are, but they're taking away from them something that I personally gave them. You know what I mean?
I hear you, but for me personally, I don't think so, because I look at it also as like, if they didn't, there's been times in my life where I didn't want to be called Melissa, so I went by Mel or Missy, right? And so and I would introduce myself like that. My oldest daughter's name is Cassidy, and she prefers to go by Cass. So when she introduces herself, it's Cass to literally everybody. Even on her school paper, she writes Cass. And so, and I'm like, hey, if that's what you want to be called, I don't care if it's, Alicia or Matt or Joe or Barbara, whatever. I don't care. If you want to change it 15 times, I could care less. Just to give me the chance to kind of get used to doing the change. I feel like as I get older, it gets harder.
That's very right. So that's very open. So Elizabeth, help me understand Green. Now, Green is the name that was attributed at birth, or is that a name that was taken on now?
It's the name taken on now to take the place of the dead name. And that part wasn't as hard for me, partly because, I mean, for example, I used to work the Kansas City Renaissance Festival, and not only do the people there take on character names of whoever they're portraying themselves as, but we had one person in our booth family, if you will, um, and she started out with a nickname almost from birth, and then the nickname changed, and the nickname changed, and the nickname changed, and so I mean, I had some friends who were, well, you're always going to be Mouse to me because that's how I've always known you. And I'm over there going, no, she's asking to be called Phoenix now. I'm going to call her Phoenix. That's the polite thing to do. Um, she was, I think she was 4 when I met her first. So
Okay.
I met her as Mouse too, but I knew what her real name was. Her parents had told me,
Mhm.
but it's just that part wasn't difficult for me. Green and I also do a lot of cosplay. So again, there's finding the right name for the character you're creating. It's
So
the
yeah, so
hardest thing for me is that I'm the gatekeeper. So
okay.
he's fine with pretty much everybody except my family, like my mother in particular, who's judgmental. And there's a really big problem with Green's dad. We are still married, but Green doesn't want anything to do with him right now, and that includes not knowing anything personal or private.
Okay.
So it's more difficult, I think, for me because I can't use Green he all the time.
Say that one more time.
I can't use Green he all the time.
Right.
I have to remember who I'm switching back and forth with.
Yeah. Okay, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
So the name change again, similar to what I asked Melissa. You said something that really struck me. You said dead name.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Um, when someone decides that a name doesn't fit them, and this isn't just the trans community, there are a lot of people who get to a point where they just either that name triggers them because of something that happened, maybe I have a very good friend actually who just finally officially legally changed her name, and with her mother was emotionally abusive, and so she was okay with certain nicknames, but if someone called her by her full name Susan, it was a
Mhm.
real moment of just an instant flashback of all the awful things her mother used to say to her. So she started it as a use name first to let her friends start getting used to it, even though she didn't have the money to go and change it legally. She just, she's had really low funding for a lot of time. But I, when it's something that's this triggering, and again, whether it's like my friend or my child, that really, a lot of people call it a dead name just because they don't want to be referred to that anymore. That's not who they feel they are. But
Hmm.
for some people, it really is a triggering event.
Okay. And
And
so, similar to what I asked Melissa, you imparted that name to your child. Is there a loss there for you with not being able to use that name that you because there's a sense that when you hear about people changing their name, a lot of times it's not given in the sense that, well, my parent gave me this name, or this is and that. They're like, well, this is society, how society sees me in this name and all this other stuff. And that's how the context I've been hearing it in. It's never been, well, this is what my mom called me, so therefore I'm going to honor what my mom saw me as when I grew up, or as I grow up, or whatever have you, as opposed to what I hear people saying when they say dead name and things along those lines. It's like it's almost like in the black community, people say, well, my last name is Butler, but in all reality, that's my government name. And so I'm tossing away my government name because I really don't know what my name is. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
yeah,
In
yeah.
the cases of Alicia and Green, perhaps now, that wasn't a government name. That was a mom and dad or caregiver name. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I'm going with that in terms of the conversation.
Yeah, I think the only thing with me is that, or for me, is that um, my side of the family has always given like maiden names of grandmothers. So we kept those names in the history. The family knew something about these women.
Right.
And so I had done that with green. And that's really the only part that maybe there's a little bit of wistfulness. Really, that's not where the grief is. It's just wistfulness of, now my great grandmother, who went through all these amazing experiences, some good, some bad, her life was just, it was amazing. And now no one in the family is carrying that name on.
Yeah, I hear you.
So so as far as changing the name to fit who Green feels he is, that doesn't really bother me. It's just a little, I hope someone else comes along and takes that name now. So
Right.
so we'll continue to remember my great grandmother.
Understood. I watched a commercial the other day. It was really kind of eye opening because I had to rewind it back to kind of make sure I heard or saw what I saw. It was a young person, and I don't know the identity of the person, but they went to go check out at a register, and when they handed their card, there was this sense that they had never been able to, in who they were now, to give their card. So, say if they were have transitioned to man and they had a female name, when they gave their card, people would look at them and say, "Well, you're not so and so," and this is and that. And now, I guess credit card companies, or at least this one,
MasterCard.
Mastercard.
I saw the same one. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
I had to rewind it because I'm like, what happened here just now? 'Cause I wasn't really fully paying attention because I never pay attention to commercials, to tell you the truth. But this one caught me in regards to that. So, but now people are affirming people for their choices.
I actually just saw someone told me today in an article or in an email that I gotten that Zoom is actually going to start supporting pronouns on Zoom now. Because I know if it's set up, I have it set up as my last name, so that way it could be seen. I don't have it. I'm not logged in right now, but I know Elizabeth, you set it up that way too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So, we could talk about your children all day, but they're not here. So I'm talking about with you and the things that you all have gone through. Elizabeth, you said that you're seeing a therapist and working through some of these things. Did you know you had to see a therapist, or was this something that you were like, I gotta go, or you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? I don't even know if I'm making any sense with that.
You are making sense. I've actually been seeing a therapist since almost when the pandemic started. Just there was so much going on, and when we've had all of this stuff going on between Green and his dad, and I knew it was not going to be pretty if I tried to handle everything on my own. And it's funny because the therapist actually said, "Well, you're so self-aware. It seems like you don't really need me. You say you've got a good support network with friends. What do you want from me?" And I said, honestly, just if I'm talking to you, I know you have the training that if you see something that
I don't know about the training after hearing this. I'm a therapist, so I think.
Yeah. No, it's fine. But what I figured and what I told her is that you know more tools than I do.
Okay.
So if you hear something that you have a tool that you think might help, that's where being a therapist instead of just a friend is important and useful to me.
Exactly. Somebody who can actually help facilitate your growth and your process and where you're going with that.
Exactly.
So, Melissa, what's your self-care regimen? How are you taking care of yourself?
Well, I've had a therapist for years. That's just even when and there was a time at one point I was like, I don't think I need it. My husband's like, "You sure about that?" Because you might seem okay today, but tomorrow you might not be. And so I was like, good point. So we always find something to talk about. I quarantine is really like the whole past year I've thrown myself into gardening, which has helped a lot. And actually my children help a lot with me on that, which has been fantastic.
Are you my wife?
Well, we bought our house shortly before COVID started. And so this was the first time I've had a large enough yard to where I could actually have a vegetable garden and grow fruit trees and stuff like that. So I'm trying to develop a food forest on one side of our house.
That's so funny. My wife has now transitioned to outdoors and has been doing all these things. She has a Zen garden now and some other things.
Me too.
And so,
You.
and so all these things. I mean, you should see the number of plants have come into our household in the past year, with regards to the how we have transitioned to a nature garden, or a nature walk or whatever have you. So that's
Yes.
her self care in terms of those pieces of the puzzle. So
Mhm.
you have turned to the nature, to kind of get back to yourself with regards to some of the stuff that's happening.
Yeah, yeah, it's also helped me. My kids are older. My kids are, 20 and 17, or the twins will be 17 in August. So I mean, I'm kind of looking towards that second part of my life where my husband and I are about to be empty nesters soon. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do now that I'm not going to be like a mom, where I have to constantly be here for my kids all the time. And it's already starting to get to that point where I'm always like, okay, before I used to insist on having family dinner every night, and my family knew it. I was like, I don't care. And for years, it was that way. We had family dinner together as a family every night. And that, I mean, and to include eating at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, because I didn't matter. And because I knew that these days would come where all three of my children work, and they all have lives and they all drive. And so if I get a family dinner where all five of us are at the table once a week now, it's, to me, that's like massive self-care for me, because I love having my family together.
Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. But you're also getting yourself geared up for when, they
Or when they're
actually,
gone.
yeah. Okay, you said that
Yeah.
with a big laugh. So that still has you still have some trepidation there.
I do. I do. I mean, it's funny. My whole life, I've always been like, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. And now I'm like, I don't know if I want it to happen all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So be careful what you can't wait for, right?
Well, yeah, and I'm very lucky. I have a very good relationship with all three of my children, so that makes it easier. Especially my 20-year-old, we're developing a friendship now. More than just a parent-daughter relationship, and my
Mhm.
other two, I'm developing that too. So it's good.
Okay. So tell me, both of you, how are people treating you because of the non-traditional way that your family has now presented itself? Are you finding that people are accepting? Are people, have you had to let people go? Have new people come into your life that, are more, welcoming or affirming? I mean, what has that process been like as a parent?
Well, honestly, everyone who knows has been very supportive. Green is thinking about coming out to my family. We're going up to see them in Missouri in a couple of weeks after Green's vaccination. The
Okay.
2 weeks passed. Yeah, so that's going to be it already is scary because I'm going to guess based on past performance that somehow this is going to be completely unacceptable and all my fault at the same time because
Your fault,
my
personally,
fault,
Elizabeth
my
Smile.
my fault because that's just how my mother has always been. She'll find some way that somehow I screwed up and I caused this to happen, which
So
of
what
course
are
we
you
know.
doing? What are you doing to prepare for that? If that's something that you think is going to come down the pike, and unfortunately, I'm sorry that you feel that way and that might happen to you.
Oh, I'm almost positive it's going to happen. She's just like I said, she's just been that way. She's been emotionally abusive towards me for pretty much my entire life, which is a shame.
Mm.
But finally, years ago, again through therapy, I just realized that I had two choices. I could just kind of try to block that off as much as possible, try not to let it affect me as much, or never see her again. And I'm not willing to cut her out of my life.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
do
that would
have
be
good times.
amazing if she goes against the grain and does something totally different.
Yeah, yeah. I hope she does, but I think mostly it's going to be my brothers and their families who are going to be like, oh, okay. But Green is currently doing a lot of almost like goth sorts of clothing. And if we go out to the store and he has to put on fishnets and little short shorts and a midriff top with boy written on his belly. And so it's this really interesting presentation to the world of like he's kind of daring people. He actually has gone out a couple of times with he him written across his forehead.
Okay.
That
Okay.
is, I love that.
Wait, what was that, Elizabeth? I mean, Melissa, what was that?
That's like a little, that's like, yay. That's like they used to snap, but then it's just so that way I don't interrupt what she's saying. It's like a little clap.
Okay. Okay. All right.
It's
All
big in my
right now.
ballroom in the drag community.
Oh, that's in the drag community. That's how they do
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Whereas I tend to use theater for people who are hearing impaired. So they do kind of like jazz hands.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So
Excellent.
that's how I do it if I'm trying to stay quiet.
Hmm.
Um, but
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
I'm hopeful, but I think part of it that is the preparation is if I'm expecting it to go poorly. Um,
so let me pull back and ask you a question. I'm not trying to be a therapist or anything like that, but hopefully it doesn't come across that way. But the relationship that your mom has with Green has been a very functional one. Do you see things that have happened in your life kind of being also put onto Green as well? And
yes,
that might give you some indication of what will happen when you go out there. Is so has it been the same way?
very much so. Yes. When I first moved down here, well, the first year we couldn't afford daycare because I was just getting started. We had just moved, all those expenses, and so my parents kept the kids for the summer. Um, and that Green actually would come home and say, well, she said this, she said that, but I understand that that's what you've gone through. So he kind of is able almost to brush it aside better, even though it started at a pretty young age. Because I've been open about it. I'm sorry this is happening, babe. This is, here's what I did and here's how I dealt with it. And,
Okay.
um, so I think Green is a little bit better about that. But my guess is as soon as he shows up at the house, I'm going to be pulled aside to talk about how this kid has buzz cut his head except for a fluffy mane on the top. We've actually had this before a couple of years ago when Green was still she. He went through a deep burgundy hair, almost a purple. There was a really orangey red flame color, and I thought it was fun. Whatever. Again, I've been part of the theater community for so long.
Yeah.
And Mom said something about why are you letting her do this? I'm like, because it's hair.
It just grows back.
Right. Who cares? It's
I
hair. And
know, right? Right,
yeah, yeah.
Melissa?
Yep.
Melissa has gone through, since I've known Melissa, she's gone through many iterations of things going on up there.
Dr.
My
B,
kids follow right after me too.
Say it again?
My kids follow right after me too with different hair colors and styles and such.
Yeah,
So, yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so Melissa, community-wise for you, how have, you've been who you are, you've presented the way you have presented for a long time now. So, um, how has your community embraced what you're going through?
So I've been very fortunate and very lucky to be raised. Even when I was young, I went through my grandmother broke her hip before I was born, and my grandparents' neighbors were two gay men. They carried her to the hospital and helped her. So my grandfather, being an old Italian man, still just didn't care. He was like, I don't care. I don't care what the church says. I don't care what anybody says. They're welcome in my home. So I was always had gay people in my life. My mom was friends with a gay club owner in DC when I was in the 80s, and she would take me down to his club and for lunch in the middle of the day, and I met all the queens and stuff like that. So, and I had friends in high school. So, and all these people are still in my life. So when Alicia came out, and Cassidy came out too, I should say, because she's in the community also. There's never been anyone who hasn't accepted my children. And also if you know me well enough to know that if you're not going to accept them, then it's going to be a fat walk away. And I don't care who you are. We do have, in the past year of a quarantine, I did a DNA test, and I reconnected with my biological family, who are the complete opposite of me to the 110th% degree. But my biological father and his wife are coming out to meet our family in September for a couple days. And so that'll be the first person who I know for a fact is not okay with the community, to be in my home openly and knowing, and we'll see how that happens then.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And you know that they're not okay with the community because?
I've seen them post things on social media.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is his biological grandchild, and this is up until a year ago. He had no idea he had any biological anything.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe he has to change of heart. I mean, he's been really great with me over the past year, and I refer to Alicia as them when I speak to him on the phone. He actually did last year for the twins' birthdays. They both did a Facebook fundraiser.
Uh-huh.
And one of them, Alicia's, was for teen suicide prevention. And my other child, their twins, was for Morgan. Morgan's was for Black trans youth. And my biological father donated anonymously to both of them. And I was like, if your friends knew, but I was like, okay. So maybe, we'll see what happens in September. I'm trying to keep an open mind on it, but my kids know that they're the highest priority in my life. So it doesn't, I've lived without him for 46 years. I don't want him now. Sorry.
Well, this is being recorded, and that you might want to share this with them one day. But anyway, I'm just messing with you. But I will just tell you that Melissa, as long as I've known you, have been just forthright and open about how you feel about things and speaking up and speaking your truth. Have you ever found speaking your truth and being open problematic, or is it just been something that has been, just how you have just purposed your life to be yourself? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, it's always problematic. Alicia, right now, their girlfriend is visiting us for 2 weeks. She lives in a different state, and I just posted, Alicia's graduating early from high school. We're super proud of them, a year early, and I posted up pictures of them and couples pictures, and I know that there's a couple people on there going, I can't believe that she's just letting that happen. Like, she's just letting her girl. Why not
let that happen, right? Yeah.
I don't care. Like, this is this is my home, and you don't pay my bills, so don't worry about what's happening in my home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's I don't know. I have this huge thing inside of me of, I just really want to live my life without hurt, and I try my hardest to not hurt other people, and I don't understand why everybody else can't just be that way too. Which is why
you find the package for that, and you find the whatever that is, and you can package it and model it.
I would love to, honestly, because and that's why I always say, and I'm like, I don't understand why people, why do you care who gets married, or why do you care who loves, or why do you care what somebody looks like or prays to, or why do you care
if that's not what you want to do? That's okay. Why you care about what somebody else is doing? Yeah.
It probably helps the fact that I'm an atheist, and I've been an atheist for 28 years, so that's always been a huge issue. That's been more of a problem in my life than being someone who is an advocate for the community or raising children in the community. Okay. Is raising atheist kids. It's actually been a harder topic for me. So,
all right, Elizabeth, what about you? Anything that you are changing or concerned about with your friends who are coming into your life or not coming into your life based on the things that are happening in your home? Like like Melissa just said, get out of my house, right? You don't have to. We can be friends. We can do whatever. You can come over. You can do all this stuff. But when it comes to me and my household, you have no say. Anything like that for you?
Well, again, the simple fact that my mother has been trying to influence me in various ways that fit her better. So, a lot of it is just, if I do try to tell her, hey, that's really not cool. You don't need to say that to me or my kids. She'll immediately, oh, I didn't mean it. So there's a lot of gaslighting that has gone on. And at some point, I basically just have to let her talk, because again, if I'm not willing to kick her entirely out of my life, I'm not going to change her. That's just not going to happen. And it's funny what you said, Melissa, about your kids and their fundraisers, because my birthday's coming up next week, and I'm going for the Zebra Coalition. I love their mission, right? So even if they can't help my kid because they start with older kids, I still love their mission. So I'm kind of waiting to see some of those also, because I went in and even said, because they give the description of the mission and everything, right? But then I added that one mission I really, really am so, I'm just so deeply appreciative of their trying to find homes for the kids who are kicked out. These kids don't have anyone who shows them that love and support. So again, I'm kind of waiting to see who donates and how many comments I get about it. My brothers, and like I said, my brothers and their families are going to be cool. A couple of them already know Green's come out to them, but the biggest thing for them is I know no matter what happens with my parents, my brothers will support me, and also they're really good about running interference because mom doesn't treat them the same way at all. Never has.
I was wondering if that was the same way. Are you the only girl?
Yes, I'm the eldest and the only daughter.
So much pressure put on you, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry.
Well,
eldest and only girl. Wow.
Yeah. It's interesting. But on the other side, my youngest brother is 16 years younger than I am, and everybody thought, oh, they're not even going to know each other because by the time he's, really starting to talk, I'll be in college. I'm the mom he could talk to.
Yeah.
So when he was having girlfriend problems, when something like that was going on, he could come to me where he knew he couldn't really talk to mom. Okay. So he and I are still very, very, very close. And he's actually the one Green has come out to. So I know as much as possible, he will also be running interference.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's very helpful. We spent about 6 weeks last summer, and we're staying in the St. Louis brothers' house. And we were talking before we got up there, and I said, this is, I want to do this because, mom actually has cancer. So, that's the other reason I'm not fighting really hard now, because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
As long as I can run interference for my kids, like my brothers do for me, right, we're just going to keep that going because we don't know how much longer we'll have. But Michael said, I can absolutely help you with that. I know how to do that.
So, a question in the chat. Was there ever a question of, do I support my child, or was the answer always that my child and I will always support them?
Never. Never. No way.
Never a question.
No. And I'm like you, Melissa. I've been an advocate for a long time, or at least an ally when I haven't known what else I could do. Up until the pandemic, I was teaching the Safe Zone series on campus. That was, again, not so much that, oh, look, I'm an ally, but I saw it, took the training, and went, okay, this is something I really want to share because it's so helpful for so many people.
Right.
And so that's actually one of the people I talked to about mourning my child, mourning the little girl I thought I had, was one of the people who also teaches Safe Zone.
Right.
So, that's been a big support. But no, there's absolutely no way. And it's the same thing I hear about these kids at Zebra. How can a parent do that? Yeah. I mean, how do you not love your child enough to just accept whatever? I mean, my kids.
Society. That's the pressure of society, right?
Religion.
A lot of it is religion. I think so. I mean,
coming from the atheists.
Well, I mean, I so when I was getting my bachelor's and I had to do it through my, my was it society research class, I did my data collecting on why parents turn their children away. Why do they disown their children when they come out in the community? And I plan on, when I go for my doctorate, I plan on doing my dissertation on that, because it's something that hits my heart so hard. Like I just don't get it. Like, my kids piss me off. I mean, but that's their job, right? They're kids. But like, they're my kids.
That's,
I mean, like, kid.
I birthed them.
Right? Yeah. I remember I can't even imagine. Like,
right.
It makes me like pop up here,
So completely alien.
So what would you say to parents? What would you say to parents who are struggling? We can talk about it in a sense where, how could you? But the fact of the matter is, they did. So what do you say, or how, as parents who are accepting of their children, communicate with parents who are struggling with this?
I think because it would be so easy to just say, how could you? But I would probably try to start asking about, why do you feel this way? What is it that, are you frightened of something? Is it your religious belief? Because I mean, I got Bible training, so
Well, a lot of times people will say that they're afraid that their kid won't be accepted, that they'll be harmed. But you all said that. But at the same time, you didn't turn your back on them.
I mean, I don't think, yeah, I've said this before to my children, and I mean this to them. No parent wants their child to go through, torment or teasing or hell or whatever the case may be. Of course not. But just because my child's gay does not mean that, oh, well, I don't want you to be gay because I don't want you. No, I want you to be happy. So it's my job to try to make sure that you're happy in our home, and then it's my job to try to help fix the world so that you can go out and be successful and live a life and be able to have that ability.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think I probably was a little more on the side of I hope they're not, because again, it is so difficult. And it's like we take 2 steps forward and then at least 1.5 back, sometimes 3 back, and it's this constant back and forth. And I mean, I have friends who are frightened about some of the changes that might come if the Supreme Court gets their paws into some of our laws. Um, and again, that's just not what any parent wants for their child. But I never expressed that to them because I knew
Yeah.
that I would love them and support them no matter what. So I
Right.
think
Right.
people
Right.
will fear here
Hmm.
that I want my kids to be happy. I want them to be successful and
Yeah.
whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
But that's the part I'm going to share with them.
So, Melissa, in your life experiences, you are coming from a point of view of, okay, thank you for telling me. I already knew. Thank you. And then, and Elizabeth, you were more caught off guard a little bit. It was a surprise to you that this is the track that your child was going to go down. Those are two very differing experiences by parents. What would you share with parents who are kind of being faced with your same situations when it comes to their children coming out?
I have actually, so my family that I've reconnected with, my father has 10 siblings. So the youngest of all of them, who is actually only 6 years older than me, um, his wife and I spoke. His wife's their child just came out as non-gender, gender fluid, actually a year ago, right shortly after we started speaking. And they turned to me and she's like, I don't know what to do. And I told her, and I said, well, and it's kind of like I said earlier, my question to her is, well, is that the same kid that they've always been? Take that part out of it. Take who they like or who they're attracted to out of it. Is it the same person, the
Yeah,
same child you've always known?
yeah.
And she was like, yes. And I said, well,
Loved your child. Yeah.
it's just because who they love is not what you think or
Right,
what society has told you to think is right.
right,
Doesn't mean that there's anything different about them. That does
right,
not change them. It doesn't
right.
actually identify them. It just says who they love.
Mhm.
And if they're trans, yes, they're changing their identity in terms of gender, but there's still that same, they don't like ketchup, or like in my terms, Alicia hates chocolate and fruit together. So I know no matter who she loves,
No
don't give
chocolate
that
covered
child
strawberry.
chocolate and fruit. Right, exactly. That doesn't change.
Yeah.
So whether she's
Wow.
date,
Well,
whether
that's
they're dating,
really a very interesting perspective, and I mean, and again, and I'm not in the position to say right or wrong how parents should treat them, but what I hear coming from you though is there's an open-mindedness that goes with the situation, right? It's like common sense is that it's my child. There may be things that I would approve or don't approve or whatever have you, but I'll never not accept my child.
but I think Elizabeth said something that she's right about. It's fear. She said they're scared,
Yeah.
and that's what it is. It's a lot of the scared. It's the unknown. It's fear of what it's something that they've always been taught,
Hmm.
and especially if they're overtly religious, well, then it goes against everything they've especially been
Right,
told,
right,
right?
right.
So I think that if with everything else, it's all kind of it's all the isms. It's the racism. It's the bigotry that comes along. It's when you teach, you got to take that hate and kind of like figure out where that hate came from. Like Elizabeth was
Yeah.
saying, you got to why is this scary to you? What part of this is freaking you out?
Right. So let me give you
Um,
a little lesson though. As a counselor, why questions are more of an attack on why somebody's doing it. You want to do like, so tell me a little bit about what's coming on for you that you would have that feeling. So
See,
the
that's why you're
why.
the professional.
The why is the attack, right? You're gonna put them on a defensive. So be careful with the why questions. Um,
No, that's good to know. Thank you. I'm glad you told me that because I never even realized that. But I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I would like to. I'll remember that.
yeah, yeah. And so we're coming up on the end of time, and I really appreciate it. I mean, it went by really quickly. You all, well, me and Melissa kind of go back, and so I knew that she would could be able to talk me through the storm. So, um, thank you both for sharing your wisdom and sharing your time, especially with this. And this again, I think the thing that I'm so impressed by both of you about is that your willingness, because a lot of times people don't want to be on the center stage or talk about things that are happening in their private life. Melissa, I don't think I've ever known you not to be, like I said before, upfront and just share how it is that you actually have kind of lived your life and moved through and navigated through that whole thing. There's an openness about you, and I'm just getting to know you, Elizabeth. But we've had interactions as well. For you both to come and kind of share this part of your life so openly, I'm indebted to you and so grateful for your time and for your knowledge and your willingness to kind of come and talk about this. Are there any last minute things that you want to share that you think that people want to know? I mean, this is the last day of Pride Month, and I'm loving the picture behind you, Orlando Strong. Is there anything as we are starting to exit this month and go into a new month that you all would like to kind of impart to those who are listening?
I think
I mean, oh, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry.
sorry. Melissa did such a great talk, great discussion about what she would try to do with other parents. But I think just like you need to support your kids, you need to care for yourself as well. So
Mhm.
it's a process.
Yeah,
So, honor that, understand that you will have your own way of dealing with this. And we tend to spend so much energy taking care of our kids that a lot of parents, and unfortunately mothers especially, because we tend to be more involved with our kids, we have to understand that take time to think about this, take time to honor your feelings like I do with my grief. um, it's there, and that's going to take a little while. It might be my whole life. I will always miss that girl I thought I would have.
hmm
You do that, you dream about what's going to happen in the future. And
the
so
weddings and all that. Yes,
right,
yes.
right. And so I mean, we may still have a wedding, that's fine. If he doesn't want to get married, that's okay too. But don't try to bury all of that. Just
hmm
I'm sure you know this of being a therapist yourself. So many people are trying to look outward so much, and we don't look inward enough. So I
Amen.
want parents, families, friends, whoever is involved in this kid's life, support them, honor them, but also think about what you're feeling and take the time to get through it.
Yeah, and I said amen there just now, Melissa, but it wasn't really, it wasn't like from a religious
I'm
perspective.
so not offended. I swear. I'm not an angry atheist.
Anyways, any last minute words for you?
I just want to say thank you, Kent, for having me on here. And Elizabeth, thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. If you ever need anybody to reach out to and speak with, I'm always here for you. It does, I will let you know that it gets easier. I mean, I'm kind of I'm an old pro in this in a sense. I mean, I was very lucky. My kid came out to me at a young age. So that way I've kind of had 7 years to really kind of like deal with actually the coming out and parenting of this. So even though this new transition of being non-binary is sort of new for me, it's my hardest transition is just getting used to the pronouns. But again, I
But
just think
also, I mean, just not to cut you off real quick, but it's also you just said something that just sparked something in me because you said you've known for 7 years and you've been dealing with this for 7 years. But in a real sense, haven't you been coming out every year, every day? Every day there's a coming out process too.
oh,
Um,
absolutely.
to deal
It's
with that.
always
So, is
I
it
mean,
ever get heavy?
I mean, even before I had this conversation, when I was first the first thing I did was go to my kids and go, okay, so I was asked to do this, and like, A, do you feel that I support you as a parent, and B, do you mind me speaking about your life? So, and they were fine with it, and of course, and I think that it's just kind of, I don't know. It does get easier, but it is constantly a coming out thing, because for me, I have to always, whenever I speak about Alicia, I have to say, my new thing is I say they singular. They
Oh, okay.
singular.
Yeah, I heard you say that. Yes.
Yep. And people go, oh, because my whole life it's been the twins have been they.
Mm-hmm.
So we've always actually had a plural they in our lives, their whole existence. So now I have to say singular they or plural they.
Nice.
And so I'm kind of trying to actually
Where did that
normalize
come
that a little
from? How did
bit.
what made you start saying that? Is that something that's in the community, or is that just something that you just did?
No, it just popped up in my mind. Like literally I was typing it out one day and I was like, and I was like, they, da, 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 and I was like, singular they. And I was like, oh, I like that. I'm just gonna keep doing that. So it works for me. It helps me and it helps people that I'm speaking to. So.
But I mean, I'm going to tell you, that's the first time I ever heard it today, right? From someone, and I understood exactly what you meant when you said it.
Oh, good. That makes me happy, because that means it's working.
Well, there you go. That's the package. That's the thing that we have to market.
There we go.
Come on, let's do this. Let's do
it, ODI. Let's do it.
All right, so I cut you off and got you off on a whole nother narrative. Was there anything else that you wanted to say and finish with?
No, not at all. Nope.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for being a part of this. Actually, and put it in the chat if you would, and actually maybe come on if you would, Kavita. I believe this is the last Matters of Diversity podcast that's going to be going out.
It is the last one.
It is the last one. As you all are dealing with transition issues, I'm going to be dealing with a transition as well. And so thank you all for being a part of my very last podcast for this diversity series. So maybe there'll be some other things that come on down the pike, but in terms of this iteration, it's going to be coming to an end, and it's been a fun ending. It's been a great ending to end the month of Pride, and to end with two phenomenal guests who are talking about their experiences. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks. Ken, I just realized I started with you when I started LEP with you, and now I'm ending this with you with your time there.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So you all, thank you for taking the time out, and again, I wish you much success, Dr. Smock. I'm gonna hopefully get to know what the ending of this story is. I hope and I pray that, and that's not an atheist thing. I hope and that you will come out of this on the other side of this very much intact, and that these things work out when you go up to visit your family. I know how taxing or trying it's going to be for you, but I know that how I feel about life is that the right things, people will eventually get it right. And unfortunately, it's a different pathway for different individuals, but it's like what you said. You birthed this child, you love this child, then you nurture this child in a way that will help that child to really be able to grow and to be able to survive in a world that's already cutting people down, right? And that you don't need to go home and get that from someone who's supposed to be your caregiver. And so I hope for you that this is not the ending, and that those things that you do want from your relationship are the things that happen. But I do know as a counselor that when something is not working for you, when you are ready to let that go, so that you can stay happy and you can be the person that you want to be in the world, then that will suffice. That will come, and it's a hard journey, and it's not something that anybody wants to do. But if you think of it in terms of self-care for yourself, I believe that you'll come out on the other side of it, even though it might be hard, all the much better for it. So I appreciate you both. Kavita, I appreciate you so much for putting up with helping put this podcast together and to put things out there for the community. We did our best. We tried to do what was necessary to kind of change the tide here at UCF, and hopefully we did our little bit of a part to make that happen. So thank you both. Thank you all, not both, three of you, very, very much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Melissa, and thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate you both.
Thank you, both of you. It's been actually fun sitting here. You know, some things are difficult to talk about, but knowing that you can in a supportive environment is really important.
Well, you shined. You shined. Both of you shined in terms of that, and not to kind of make a pun on it, but you've made the community proud, and so thank you so much for that.